All right, guys. Looks like we are on. This is Tim and Julie at Quantum Alchemy Fusion. Today, we are doing a live talk with Lisa Barnett. And Lisa Barnett has been a good friend of both Julie and myself for over 12,
Over 20 years.
over 20 years for Julie and 12 years for me.
Lisa.
So we're really looking forward to this wonderful moment. It's going to be a lot of improv. Lisa's obviously got a lot to share. She's been doing this for a lot of years. So Julie's going to do a quick introduction bio, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, guys. So we're very excited, as Tim mentioned, to bring on Reverend Lisa Barnett. She is an exceptional Akashic Records teacher and founder of Akashic Knowing School of Wisdom. She channels her extensive expertise and knowledge into the transforming lives of humanity through the Akashic Records. She also has taught thousands and thousands of students worldwide to access their own records so they can get into their own soul path and understand their next steps, all that lovely, juicy stuff. She is the best-selling author of 4 books where Lisa shares profound insights that guide individuals towards alignment and self-realization. And with more than 30 years of experience, she is teaching empowerment tools to help you find greater fulfillment, happiness, abundance, and good health. She offers Akashic reading and quantum healing sessions. So you guys check out her website. I believe it's Akashic Wisdom, Akashic Knowing School of Wisdom. There we go. And she offers Akashic readings and healing sessions that heal trauma, release karma, and clear old souls of contracts and vows. And that is really coming up a lot right now, guys. Tim and I do a lot in that arena as well. So we can tell you it's coming up a lot right now. And so helping individuals align with their soul's plan. So we bring on Lisa Barnett.
And before we do that, one more last plug. If you've been living under a rock and you haven't been watching Gaia TV or Shift Network or Coast to Coast or Unity or TEDx, Lisa's all over those platforms as she's launched her books and she's been a guest on so many platforms. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. I know. I love being here with you guys. 20 years, it was just dawning on me, Julie, as I was kind of listening. I'm like, wow, yeah, back when we first bought our house in Sedona, we connected, I think, through Patty. Anyway, I'm like, wow, 20 years. Time does fly, doesn't it?
That's identical. And it was crazy. Both of us.
Yes.
It's a small world and how we all get connected. Girl, anything that you want to start with, Lisa? Always we'll jump right into some questions.
If people don't know you, we thought we'd start with some basic questions and then we're going to go deep and have a lot of fun.
Yeah, probably a good place. Always, I think that just, I like to give my version of what the heck the Akashic Records are and why it's like such an empowerment tool and an important topic. So I'll just start with that and see what else we want to talk about, right? So the Akashic Record is the recording of your soul's journey throughout all time-space continuum. So what that means is from the moment your soul individuated from source, I'm going to say billions of years ago, if there was time, everything you have ever been, every dimension in this really, multiverse, everything is recorded in this etheric energy that we call the Akashic Records or the Akashic Field. And so the very cool thing is it's kind of like a lot of us have this set up, on our computers. Everything we do is automatically lifted into the cloud, recorded in the cloud. So every soul has their own library, huge library, because we're really so ancient, and a team of librarians that I refer to as the Akashic Record Keepers. So you have an Akashic Record library and a team of librarians keeping your records for you. And they're accessible. And that's the important thing because they weren't accessible for about 1,000 years. So it's time to kind of dive back into that information about your soul.
Very cool. I have a question since you brought up that it records everything. Are the records actually stored in our solar system, in the galaxy, in the cosmos? There's been a lot of different theories around where are we where are those actually being held, and how are they being protected from not being, interfered with?
Right. So what the record keepers say is that they are part of source energy. They are part really of the quantum field of the all. So we have our personal libraries, there are collective libraries, there are galactic libraries, right? So there are more than just our personal, but they're held in source. Our record keepers keep them protected for us, I would say, because the kind of mandate with the records is that we are only allowed to access our own records or someone else's records with consent, right? With conscious consent. So anyone who starts to muck about in other people's records will lose access to that, and often really lose access to a lot of their psychic abilities, their clairs, their gifts, right? Because they're literally pulling those higher energies away from us when we abuse and misuse them.
I mean, that's good to know, right? It's a lot of with the matrix thing coming up with Earth ascending. There's a lot of distortions in the field. So I think it's comforting for people to understand that this is a safe place, that they can come in here and they are secure, that there are guardians that are checking everybody's ID basically to get into their records and make sure they are integrity and authentic and should be there. Because it is that time. And I see a huge surge with people wanting to know soul path, what's their destiny, and these trauma lines in the lineages, especially, that just seem to go on and on. We ourselves have been doing a lot of this personally. And I just think it's super important that you'd share those elements about it's a secure place. You can find a ton of stuff in here, and you can also heal a ton of stuff. You want to go into a little bit about the healing side of that?
Absolutely. And the other thing that I wanted to share is that during the Dark Ages, because again, there had been greater access into the Akashic records previously, during the Dark Ages, there wasn't that much light on Earth. And so people really did start messing around and using, kind of darker magic and different kinds of really dark energies to give themselves power. And the record keepers at that point pulled the Akashic field far enough away from Earth that almost no one had access anymore. So, of course, maybe the great mystics could access it, right? People like Nostradamus obviously were able to kind of access that, but the majority of humans were no longer able. And so that's kind of the interesting part. They pulled the energy away. It was literally kind of far enough away from the earthly 3D plane that we forgot about it, that we even forgot there was such a thing. And so in the 70s, 80s, the Akashic record keepers contacted me. That's actually how I started accessing the records. It was like I was working as an energy healer and really intuitive psychic reader. And every once in a while, I get this huge information. It would be like this booming voice and all of this information about my clients' past lives and future intentions and plans and soul lineages. And, and I think, holy moly, what is that? I mean, like, that is not the normal way I get information.
Yeah.
And it took me a couple of years before I actually realized, because it was, again, back in the 80s, it was not commonly spoken about. The only reference I would find would be Edgar Cayce, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it took literally almost 5 years for me to figure out who the heck was talking to me, start having a conversation with them. They would say, help us to re-anchor this energy so that we can bring this back at this powerful time in history. you know, and of course, for a while I thought I was crazy. And then
It sucks being the first.
Yes.
anyway, um, but I want to share that because again, they're reminding us that the beings of light, which are pure source beings, and I think this is another kind of important piece, is that your Akashic record keepers, these pure beings of light that keep the records, have never been human. They are not angels, archangels, ascended masters. They are no one that has a name. They were no one that you would know. They are pure source, right? And basically, the way they explained it was that when we individuate from source, we start on a journey. We're born with a little group of soul family members. So there might be, let's call it, 25, 30 souls that kind of are born together. And it's always that kind of idea, like you're born in a little basket or in a little family. We travel around the multiverse together. We do tons and tons of things throughout this, right? No time space continuum until we eventually come here. Now, coming to the earth, we've pretty much gotten trapped in this old karmic wheel of life, as it's been referred to, karmic loop. And the good news is that over these last, say, 10,000 years, we have pretty much worked through that. The vibration is raising. We are complete in the ethers, in the Akash. The karma has been completed. And so now it's up to us to let it go, to take the lessons we've learned, to understand how they can be a gift to us, and to really move forward with the, hopefully, forgiveness and compassion that we've learned through these karmic lessons that are all about growth. So we're so ancient and so complex. And again, to say that I think if enough people misuse the Akashic records again, they would just pull it back away. So if the dark won, which they won't, but just in case, if they did, I think we would all lose access. We would probably also blow ourselves up, but we would all lose access again. So there are weird kind of ways, the record keepers can do it for one person who is abusing the access, but they could do it for all of humanity like they did back in the Dark Ages.
So thanks for bringing this in, because it kind of ties into the rest of our questions. Ed, why is now the time? You're hinted that now there's more light, and at some level the karma has been dissipated and resolved. Now, how do we bring that down to the 3D experience, right? How do we start dissolving that from that level down into this experience? Is there, obviously, Akashic readings aren't up here always happening, quantum healing. Are there other things that we can do to start dropping and dissolving those layers down into 3D?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I know the work that you do is very, very helpful in that. To me, my simple answer is learn to read your own records, because of course, I do readings and energy healings for clients, and I can heal and clear and release a boatload of old karmic patterns, physical pain, emotional trauma, etc. in an hour. But it is such a powerful tool. It is an empowerment tool, really, for everyone because of a lot of reasons. One of them being that we can kind of look at this big picture. So if we think, why would I ever pick that family? Why would I pick an abusive family or an addicted family or a parent, who's a narcissist or any of the traumas, right? And I could list dozens of traumas that people would say, really? I wouldn't pick that. Really? That's crazy. But when we go into the Akashic records, a couple of things happen. when we move into the Akashic field, we're moving into really a frequency of about 600, 700, 800. We're moving into love, peace, awakening. We are in the field of the quantum field of source, and we are held in this pure energy that also allows us to move out of that really linear mind into the more expanded space of our sacred heart, of our heart center, of source energy, of deeper wisdom and knowing, so that we can understand, why would I pick that family? And the way the record keepers would say in a reading, if I was doing that for a client, they would usually give me a half a dozen reasons why you would pick that family. One being that you are part of this family lineage. You mentioned, ancestral lineage. We say, I've been part of this ancestral lineage before. It's a very abusive lineage. We are going to end that pattern in that family lineage so that that is no longer passed forward. Abuse is no longer passed down to the next generation as it has been for the last, 5 generations. And so we choose, as huge infinite souls, we say, I'm going to jump in there and I'm going to end this. Okay. So we're so much more than we often imagine we are. So we want to do that as that. And then we think, well, I've been very abusive, whether in that ancestral lineage or in other past lives. And so one of the ways we work is that we always want to experience both sides of every coin. So if I have been abused, I have been the abuser. There is really no question about it. And often in a variety of ways. Again, it's not just a flat coin. It's more of a faceted, crystal. So we may have done 5 versions of being abusive and having been abused, right? So sometimes it's physically, sometimes it's emotionally or mentally, or sexually. It can be, all of those. And so we want to understand, because that's actually why we come to this planet, is we want to have this experience that we can't have in any other world, of any other realms. And so we want to experience it all, right? It's kind of like, going to an amusement park and riding the roller coaster, even if it makes you sick, going into the whatever haunted house, even if it scares you. I mean, it's kind of like that. I mean, that's really what we're doing. And so we start to understand when we can kind of, grok that fact, when we know, see, feel, kind of can download that truth, it really shifts and actually helps us to clear, release, delete, and heal in a moment, kind of that light going off, right? And so we can realize very quickly. And of course, in the Akashic Records, I do a lot of quantum healing. I teach my students to do this for their clients because it's so important for all of us to heal from our trauma, from our wounds, from our huge questions that leave us just in a quandary, like, why the heck would I ever, right? So we really want to understand, and in that space of the wisdom, in that space of that quantum beautiful field of source, we are able to heal very, very quickly and understand. And when we understand, then it's much easier to let that go. And again, so we're releasing the old karmic patterns. It gets unstuck. We move into a greater space of compassion, usually, and then many of us will go out and take what we've learned from our karmic, from these painful karmic patterns, and we may turn that into, maybe we become a therapist or a healer or some sort of spiritual leader, teacher, right? We take the wisdom that we glean from these lives and we share it with humanity.
I had questions been rolling around in my head about everything you're saying. So much you packed in there. So thank you so much for that. So the questions that come to me, it's, a lot of times we get asked questions. Well, what is the quantum field? And when you look at the language we use is about the quantum and the Akashic and accessing in the quantum. A little bit of language gaps. So I just want to make sure people understand when I say, accessing in the quantum field, it's where you have a 0 point where time and space basically have collapsed. And when you're in that field, you have access to past, present, or future because there is no such thing. It's only in the now. And all those timelines are accessible in this reality. So I've got a multi-part question, and maybe you can break it down however you think appropriate. When we're in that field and we're accessing and to get access into the Akashic records are also in the quantum, as you've said. When you're in that space, you actually got access to multiple timelines, right? So I'm just wondering, how do people, when they're accessing the Akashic records and they're accessing it in the quantum, do they like cherry pick? I want to pick this timeline, and how do they go to the, let's just say, library cards to figure out which timeline I want to pick from, and what am I really getting? Because you could be reading another timeline versus the one that you're in now, and how do we sort through the access to this?
Fascinating question, Tim. Thank you. So I would say the way the Akashic records, the access keys that I have been given, access into our kind of this body, this contract, this soul plans timeline. So, of course, you can ask about some other timelines. You may, we can shift some of them around sometimes, which is pretty fascinating. But generally, as we're going into, it's almost like opening the door. We're going into this timeline library, right? And so they try, and again, because there are record keepers, there are librarians who are in service to, just you, right? If it's your library, Tim, they're your record keepers. And Julie's got her own separate library with her own separate team of record keepers. And so they're not all collective. They're a team that's really just yours. And the kind of fascinating thing is that in doing readings for other people, you really experience the variety of kind of personalities that these record keepers have. Right? And so, like, I'm sure, Tim, yours are very funny. Julie, not so sure.
More serious, definitely.
Mine yell. I swear to God, I have had students do readings for me, and it would make them cry. They would be like, "Oh, they're yelling at you," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, they're just." Right? That's how I get so much done. They are very, very, very aggressive, pushy, and they want me to get all this stuff done. And so they doesn't sound like yelling to me, but to say to a new student who's just learning to read the records, it sounds like yelling. So it's very interesting. I'm like, why don't I have fun?
Because we know for a lot of years, and we know that you are a go-getter. You completely push through everything we've seen you come across. So they're just reflecting you, I think, and or maybe it's
I'm
not sure what came first, the chicken or the egg. It's one of those kinds of things, right? I'm like, yeah. So and back to timelines.
Yes.
So I'd love to kind of explain the way I see it, because probably the first time I had like a very profound experience of being in the void, which is what I call kind of this 0 point. Often it's been referred to as the quantum void. And to me, the quantum void is, well, of course, it is 0 point. It is no thing and all things, right? It is infinite possibilities and nothing.
Yes.
So I had this experience many years ago where I was doing a reading for a client. I opened their records and I was just in the void. It was just felt that I was in a infinite black space. And I thought, oh, that's a cool and interesting, right? And then they asked a question about a block. And all of the sudden, it felt kind of like, instead of just being completely infinite void, like I was in the middle of a huge infinite black ball. Like I was inside the ball. But what I saw was almost like golden threads spinning around. And then when they asked this specific question about what's blocking me, all of these sudden, these little kind of balls, little balls of light popped out and became they lined up for me to make it neat. But they were all past lives or other lives or other timelines. And they were symbolic, we'll say, but they were the lifetimes that this person had these challenges that were still affecting and blocking them now. So it was almost like energetically, I could see and go into that life, kind of get that download story. Claircognizance to me is one of the most powerful clairs that most of us aren't as aware of. It's clear knowing, right? So I go into this life and I know this story. I'm like, oh, that life you were killed for. Let's just go with, because of course it's still very up, and so many of us are still needing to clear a lot of the trauma from lives we were killed for accessing our gifts, our clairs, our power, our healing. We're oracles and seers and healers. And so when I then see that life, I can know it's healable again in this no time space, even though this may have happened 600 years ago or 6,000 years ago, doesn't matter, that in this field, the energy, the pain, the emotion, almost in the sense of being able to put focus on it, energetically inviting help from source, from our record keepers to release, delete that heavy weight, the physical pain, the trauma, the energies that kind of lock us down. And in that void space of nothing, you see it, all of that really evaporate into, again, nothing. And that life then is able to transform in the infinite possibilities of source, of the universe. And so it goes from kind of a traumatized picture to almost, to a healed, and I see it as very golden. I see things that have been healed as very gold. And so then the things have shifted to almost like a golden ball of pure light, and it kind of goes back into its path. And I, kind of focus on these other 6 lifetimes, and all of them would be healed. And I just could see this energy shifting in the field of the person who is in this, now moment, right, with me in the Akash. And so, yeah, that was kind of the best way I can almost explain how I see, feel, experience kind of this quantum healing through the Akashic records. And I find it's helpful for the client to hear some of the story. I don't go very deep into stories anymore because, of course, the record keepers want us to stop living in the past, right? Stop wallowing in the old pain and gunk and stories. So they'd rather say, well, that life you were, killed for being a seer, and this life, whatever, and da, 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 so just kind of tiny stories. But just shifting and releasing that. And then, of course, usually the knowing or the experience for the client is lightness, space, release, all of that kind of shift as the body, and it comes in and starts to shift us on a cellular level. And sometimes I'll see almost like it looks like an energy waves through the cells in the body.
So you're actually dissolving the trauma, and so I'm just, because we're hearing this a lot, rewrite versus dissolving. Mm-hmm. So it sounds like you're actually dissolving the trauma, and it almost like collapse the field. So it's like leaves the records. So it just brings back the light again. It returns to what was before, that imprint in the records.
Yes, and the record keepers are saying, in this world, that life would not dissipate. The pain trauma story would dissipate. The life would remain, but it would be different. So I often think about that as we rewrote that life, right? And so we're clearing, releasing, dissipating the pain, the trauma, that story part of that life. And then it allows that person in that life to actually maybe fulfill their soul's plan, to actually continue to be the seer, the healer, the teacher that they had come to be, instead of dying. So in the end, it also is rewriting it
simultaneously. So the person's had this amazing quantum healing in the Akashic field, and they're in a physical body. And what happens? So the belief structures and the contracts or whatever might have been attached to that, are they instantaneously gone, and they no longer have those belief structures anymore? That they dissolve as well, because there's been some kind of behavior, right, that's been holding them in this field. So it goes into those layers as well. It changes their whole being.
Yes, and I am so waiting. I'm sure you and Tim are too, Julie, just waiting for that moment where it's just like, damn, it's so done, right? And I saw that over. But what I also find with us still in 3D, right? Most humans still holding a frequency or vibration of 200 or below. We still have a lot of of anger, fear, shame, blame, guilt. All of those low vibrational emotions are all below, vibrationally below 200. And so what we can do also is, I work on that aspect, and then I ask the record keepers, what about any contracts? Are there soul contracts that are stuck? Right. So we start to just want to look for all of those and call them out. And so usually the way the record keepers explain it is a past life contract is complete because it's in a past life, right? And we know it's all still happening. So it might be really still active in that life, but it's not active in this life, even though you feel like it is. If that made sense.
It does. It does.
And so we release it from this life, from this. So, your soul in this moment's contract with that past, because that is no longer valid. So we clear the stuck, right? Because they often get very stuck with emotional pain and trauma, physical pain, trauma, all those things. And so we release those. I look for any vows we made, because again, usually if we're getting, maybe we're getting tortured for being a seer and they want some information, right? All of that physical pain. While you're in pain, we often make vows such as, I'm never doing that again.
Yeah. Oh, true. Why would we want to?
I don't want to be a seer. Look at what that had. That sucked. That was like I was tortured. I was left to die in a cell, No, we want to go through and release all of the vows we've made, because vows are very weird, sticky things. So go through and release all the vows we've made around that life. So I do it and teach it to my students pretty linearly, meticulously, because I find that as humans, that's what we still are, right? I know it's changing and will change, hopefully sooner than later, but in this moment, I find that it is very helpful for clients to know that we're clearing these old contracts from past lives. We are burning all the vows. I'm a big fan of fire because I think that burning things like a vow, it just dissipates. And
Yep.
so I like to go through. I sometimes will find that we actually rewire someone's brain, left, right hemispheres of the brain, to kind of help to shift out of some of those patterns. And then the other really kind of big and powerful tool that I use in the Akash is to really deprogram people, right? We have huge collective programs and we have a ton of personal programs.
Yep.
Right? And again, in the Akashic Records, I will see these programs often as they look sometimes like a kind of geometric shape around a person's head, around their heart, might be around their whole torso, it might be around their whole body. But these are programs, they're like cages. Sometimes it might look like an octagon, or sometimes it might look like a jail, literally a freestanding jail cell. And we make them, our parents make them, our religions really strengthen them. Yeah. All of that. And so again, it's a very important piece to me to kind of work on breaking down. Part of what keeps those programs in place is we have these kind of energetic connectors that say, if you go out there, you're not safe. If you say that, something bad will happen. And so they're kind of the support system that keeps the program in place. So again, start to break down all of the support systems so that we can dissipate, so we can destroy the program and then free them up. So again, it's a process. I know, as your work is also, right? There's many aspects and layers. And so we go through a lot of these processes. And so for a reading, I often say that, if you're over 40 or 50, you would probably work with me for 3 times, 6 times, depending on your especially your childhood trauma, your ancestral trauma, things like that, because we as humans move a little bit slower than, again, I believe we'll be able to in the future. But at the moment, layers takes a while for the body to reorganize, right? To process it, to move on to the next level.
Yeah, you just answered another one of my questions, which is great. That does take time, and let's kind of differentiate. Like for us, we go into the quantum field as well in our practice, and I have had people, previous teachers, previous just modalities. They really promote affirmations and trying to rewrite your belief structures. So why isn't that working when we're in a 3D and we're thinking it, but we haven't accessed the quantum field? Why does it? How can we have that gap?
Well, our mental layers are very, very powerful. And on one hand, we can say that it absolutely plays into creating our reality, but it's not just that. And that's the thing. So when we're doing affirmations, when we're saying something every day, often we move into an automatic rote kind of way. So we often are not even thinking about it anymore, but we're not connected through our heart. We're not connected energetically through these other bodies. And so we need to go deeper and bring in, you have of course not only the brain, the mental aspect, but in our head, that sixth chakra also holds that pineal and connects into the gateway into source, into higher vibrations. But our sacred heart, our gut brain, right? We have to literally bring all aspects of ourselves in order to start to make these shifts. And I think that's one of the reasons that we also see that raising our frequency is so, so important, right? As well as really bringing it into the body, into the heart, into the physicality, not just the mind. The mind is just a small piece of changing your world, but we're really talking about changing your reality. So
Yeah,
it's worth doing.
yeah, yeah. I know. I think it's been almost 15 years when I first introduced to working in the quantum field and coming and breaking out of the matrix hold, right? So I wanted to touch a little bit on all of these experiences that it sounds like there's soul contracts. We come in here, we're having these trauma experiences. So is that the role of the matrix on this planet? Is that that they hold that dark energy that we can have those experiences, or is there a different role, or is there other additional roles that the matrix that we've been talking about getting out of?
Right.
That what is its purpose here at the end of the day, because it's kind of confusing for people, right? Because you've got so much coming at us from all these on the sound waves. We just look at social media and the politics and the news force and everything. Everything is bad, 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 bad. What is the role of our messaging, right? And how does it connect with our soul agreements, and what is outside of the soul agreement that's actually maybe interfering in humanity tapping into that higher quantum field?
Well, it's so complicated, Julie.
Have an answer because it is complicated.
Just dummy doll for the 2-year-old.
I will give you my weird complex version, which is even a way simplified, because I think it is so complicated that our minds would just blow up if you could actually see all of the dimensions and all the layers and all of the architecture. So when we go into looking at our world more as architecture, one of the things the record keepers say is that, again, very long time ago, very high dimension. For some reason, the 14th is the one that always pops into me. We decided from that world, from that realm, that we wanted to have different experiences, right? So from a space of very angelic human beings, we're like, ooh, let's bring the earth down. Let's go from the 14th down to the 8th. Let's see what the 6th is like. Let's, come down into this third. And so we actually, kept changing the matrix, because it is really all architecture. So I look at that matrix as a version of architecture, until we came down and created this more earthly plane. And then I believe that, again, we're not, I don't know, there's so many other realms and beings and other things going on out there, right? So I always kind of think, because I don't want to make it any creepier than we already think it is. I just will go with, we versions of us, right? Again, we do it all. I always think that I've had a couple of not nice past life memories, right? And it's kind of been, to me, like a draconian life, and these kind of lives where, like, I was enslaving humans as a draconian, and I thought, oh wow, that's okay. I get it. I really get it in a bigger way than just thinking like, I know I've done both sides. I know I've been abusive. I know I've been a thief. I know I've, well, you start looking at yourself as a draconian with no emotions, enslaving humans underground was like, woof, that was the weirdest experience I ever had. But anyway, but we as other beings also started to invert the world and lock it down. So we actually, they, us, it's all us, locked this matrix down. So it has been very hard to unlock. So a lot of what's built, even like if we look at the pyramid systems and the standing stones, even our angelic beings, our archangels, and our all of these have been kind of locked down in a more dark matrix. So we are trying to unravel the dark matrix so everything can what do you say? Reinvert? Turn right side up. Anyway. And so that's the process. That's what we're doing. And that's why we're all here. That's why every one of us angelic humans who created this now mess is back on the planet unraveling and unwriting. And so we hold these big keys and codes and aspects. And this was why the record keeper said that they asked me to help re-anchor the Akashic records, because I hold a chunk of the Akash. And so we are architects, and every person is, or every angelic human, which is not every human on the planet, but every light worker on the planet holds aspects of architecture. Mine happens to be the Akashic field as an aspect, and other weird aspects, because, it's one of the reasons I probably work on slavery a lot, because I hold some aspect of that in the draconian worlds. And again, we're not all light and good. So
There's something interesting when you see the draconian light turn, because that's one of the beings that comes up all the time when people want to know who's running the show on the dark side, right? And draconians is always usually at the top of the list. But another perspective that was shared, and I can't remember where I heard this, wherever I heard it, it really isn't relevant, is that when souls come into this experience and they haven't had all of these different reference points for trauma, they will literally borrow, right? Their higher souls, over souls, whatever, will actually initiate some of these traumas so they have that experience. So that then brought me to question, did we really all spend the time being a draconian or a dark witch or any of those kinds of things? Or does some of these light beings, because one of the thought process, what do I want to say? One of the concepts, that's probably easier putting it, is that there's a lot of light beings that infiltrated, basically were born into Earth at this time to assure the dark forces did not slip Earth again. This is a very opportunity, right? With a lot of sun coming into this realm. We're circling through the sun again as the Earth. And they needed to bring more light beings into this planet to tip the balance back a little bit more normalized, because it was so dark. Like you said, the dark ages, when they had even shut down that Akasha because it got so dark. How do you, they were the dark forces, everybody forgot they were light. The dark forces just did whatever they wanted to. And it's how do we tip that imbalance that happened, right? And that was one of the solutions, because the light forces actually obey the contracts of the universe, and they do not interfere. They come in as souls into this plane and have the experience, but we have to agree when we do that we forget everything, that we forget that we are light. Right. And that was one of the techniques, was then again to borrow some of these experiences so we could really stand in that space and understand, what does it feel like when you have lost all your connection to the source and you have no compassion, you have no empathy, you have no love for the being in front of you that you're torturing. And that's a concept that I think you're the only one I've been able to have that conversation with. And that's like, yeah, what is that, or what is really happening?
So, I'm always listening to the record keepers. You're not really asking me, you're asking them. And so
Absolutely. Yeah.
what they're saying is, again, always a little complicated. So a couple of different layers. All of these children who are coming in, who have been coming in probably for about the last 10 years. Of course, there's always a couple early, but now specifically, I believe since, they're saying 2020, but really now 2025, they will not have ever been human. So they will be pure beings of light. They will be, they may have had plenty of lives on Arcturus or in the Andromeda system or elsewhere. They just didn't get into our story, our karmic pattern. And so those children will come in with no karma and no memory. So they'll come in without the garbage.
So we're putting them in a garbage system. They're never taken and put them right in the dump.
Right. But here's the thing, and it's kind of cute because they're referring to me. They're saying, well, kind of like when I came in, right? I was very awake when I was 3 years old. I realized I could remember not being human. I could remember being in the other planes with my friends, my soul family members. And that I always was very conscious. These kids will just always be conscious and will not buy into it. And they will be, in a great sense, our saving grace, right? They'll be able to bring through those galactic inventions that we have not been able to remember yet, right? Because they won't be so mucked up with the garbage. But also, so then the other layer is many of us. So they keep saying that every light worker, every one of the millions of us is back on planet. So many of us have come in more awake because we've come, like 800 lives. Now we're like, I keep trying. And they're like, now it's time. Now you can do it. Now there's enough light. So go down and remember. And so all of those light workers who did, often step into layers of trauma. I would say that, because this was always so kind of mind-blowing to me, about 70% of the light workers on the planet, of the older light workers who are probably at least 50 or older, stepped into abusive families to end abuse on the planet. Right? So it was, yes. Well, and it is a lot, really, when you think about it. Because that's, again, it's a huge collective soul contract to kind of allow abuse and look the other way, for it to be normal or unseen in ancestral lineages, all of these things. And so they've stepped in to end it. And they're saying, kind of like what you were saying, Julie, some of them are coming in a little more pure and have stepped into a bunch of different old karmic patterns just to end the pattern, even if it wasn't theirs. But they're saying for most of us, it's been our pattern for, as we've been here for so many hundreds of times. But I think really this next step is we'll see these little toddlers who are like so pure, bright, shiny with, nothing but consciousness.
Yeah, we have grandkids, right? And Tim has his son has 3, 5 and under, and I had 8 under. Yeah. And so now my youngest grandchild just turned 4, and he's been deemed autistic. And when he was first 1, I would watch him just go into a space, and you knew he wasn't really here, right? He was connecting with something else. And he honestly could care less. if you're in his world, because he is connected really someplace else. It's kind of interesting, and he's 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 right now a handful, but because he moves like silent wind. Is just crazy. He has a whole different vibration or frequency about him, and yeah. So I'm just curious, when you're seeing that in law, especially the last 5 years, and now it's going to be even stronger. These beings are coming in with no karma. How is the rest of how can I, as a grandmother, for instance, help with this fight? This 4-year-old, and I'm sure we'll see with Tim's younger grandkids as well, is that how can we help them and their parents? Because it's real difficult if you haven't had grandkids yet. It's real difficult to step into your child's parenting patterns and try to infuse a different idea. It's all, they have their own agreements. And that's what we really come to honor. Yeah, they have their own agreement. It's none of our business, but we do kind of want to hold a container for it. So that was a big loaded question.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that the record keepers keep saying is that as the vibration of the planet raises, then these kids will be able to shift into living here and being more integrated here. So it basically sounds like whatever we're labeling as autistic will go away, right? Because they won't just be in the next higher dimensions. They'll be able, when we're in the 4th dimension, it'll be easier for them to be here and to download the information they've come to download and to help us change, the things that they've come to change. So, I think it's really exciting. We have a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old grandkids, which a little complicated. Again, you start to look at soul contract, because I also raised my nephew because I had a soul contract to raise him along with my 3 children. And so they're his kids. We consider him our grandkids, even though he's my nephew. But anyway, again, soul contract or soul contract.
It really doesn't matter. Yeah.
Right. Doesn't matter.
We have a grandson that we have that same kind of relationship with. It's like he's my 6th child at some little bit detached level, but I'm supposed to be very much connected in his life. So I understand.
Yeah. And so I'm watching the 1-year-old who is just one of those kids, kind of like actually our oldest son. They just are like little Buddhas. They always struck me as Buddhas. They just are studying the world. They are learning everything they can from the moment they're born. They're just watching and learning and figuring it out. And I really think it's, part of that is work at this age, and then I was laughing because they were showing me some videos, and he just spends, this little 1-year-old likes to spend the whole day cleaning. And I'm like, oh my God, he's so the cleanup crew, right? Literally he's got a little toy mop. He just mopping up the whole world.
That's amazing.
I know. So you just go, cool. Well, yay, cleanup crew is arriving. That is so good.
Yeah. That's almost sounds like you should have meditation groups for these 3-year-olds, right? Because once they ground that higher vibration, because they cannot be anything else but, honestly, that's who they are and what they are. We just create these spaces for them to come and just assist humanity and bringing in that 5D, dissolving the 3D. Sounds like a great plan.
Actually, I think it's the other way around. When the grandchild Sep, Julie's grandchild, my grandchild, step grandchild, sat in my lap, he'd just sit there with pure innocence and hold the space, and I'm just sitting there watching and going, we do a lot of meditations and we use the terms like and just be, right? And just be, and he was just being. He was just being. He was like teaching me, reminded me, Grandpa, just be. And how to be. And so there's so much we get influenced by all the baggage, as you said, the garbage and this vegetable soup of our lifetimes. And if they come in so pure, we should, us learning from them, which really, I think, was my point. Anyway, wanted to pivot a little bit. you're doing some pretty amazing things on online, and you've got some upcoming classes. I'd love to hear more about what you're doing and how you're doing it, going about doing that. And also, as a part two, if you can also cover, I've been on your website to see all the books you've written. You've obviously written 4 books, but each one has a purpose. And I wanted to let you comment on who should read which books if they're interested in which aspect of things. So tell us, what are you doing, and where can we find a lot more information about you?
So, so my website is akashicknowing.com. And yeah, I'm sure you can, whatever, drop those in chat.
I'll drop it in the link.
Yeah, akashickknowing.com. And so my 4 books are right there on the homepage. So the first book I actually wrote is called The Infinite Wisdom of the Akashic Records. And it is a how to access the Akashic Records book. That was the first one I published in 2015. And so back then, the record keepers said, we want you to teach people to access their own Akashic records, because it is everyone's birthright, which I think is so important for people to realize, because people often, we go to our human space. I don't know if I'm good enough. I don't know if I can do it. I don't, all of the self-doubt that we have. Again, it's a collective pattern. And so they gave me a 5-step wisdom prayer system. They have now given me 8 galactic access keys, which I'll talk a little bit more about when I go to my Unchain Your Galactic Soul event that's coming up. But
which book did they find that in, Lisa?
The Infinite Wisdom of the Akashic Records is my How to Access Your Akashic Records book. It gives you the 5-step wisdom prayer system. And so if people are ready, right, you totally know what the records are, you've been following it for a long time, you're ready to give it a shot, The Infinite Wisdom of the Akashic Records. And then the second book I wrote is called From Questioning to Knowing, 73 Prayers to Transform Your Life. Here, I actually have, could do this, I have all of my books always on my desk, so I can show you. So the Infinite Wisdom, this is the how to access your records. So that will take you through the 5-step wisdom prayer system. From Questioning to Knowing has 73 prayers to transform your life. So I don't know if you remember this, Julie. I was writing all these books mostly in Sedona.
I remember this.
Yeah. And so I channeled 73 healing prayers from the record keepers. And so they have the energy and vibration of pure source energy, pure love. They have the beautiful power of your Akashic records. And they cover everything from a prayer for your clearing your energy field to there's the physical level kind of stuff like chakra clearing, but there's a prayer to clear ancestral family influence, right? There's a whole section about soul contracts with your family influence, ancestral influence, prayer of remembrance, prayer to release vows. So all of the, I definitely, it's a phenomenal healing book. Yeah.
When they do the prayer, because they're coming out of the Akasha, do they automatically then enter the Akashic records when they're reciting these prayers or embodying these prayers? Does it take them into their field and they can start dissolving the soul contracts? What's happening in those?
Yeah. So it doesn't so much add. So most of my students or people who buy this book say that they like to read whatever's sometimes people just open up the book to whatever page it is. You don't even have to go through the process of opening your records. Again, for my students who have learned my 5-step wisdom prayer system and can open the records, I suggest open your records, be in the field, and read whatever prayers are coming up. Nice. I teach 14 of them in my workshop, because they're very helpful for clearing other people, for aligning us to our soul plan, to the Akash, to our purposes. But just by reading them, the vibration is held in the Akash. The record keepers are kind of just activated to help you to energetically release. So it's a very simple, you can just read a prayer and just kind of feel that energy shift. So that is from questioning to knowing, 73 prayers to transform your life. And to me, it's a super just powerful empowerment tool, again, to have and use. Akasha, I wrote, it's part of a series with the Common Sentience series of books, which is kind of an amazing series of spiritual books on everything from, like, there's mediumship. Freddie Silva has portals, there's angels, there's nature, spirit guides, all of this. So mine is Akasha, and it's a 3-part book. The first part really explains a lot more, what the records are, who the record keepers are, all of that kind of information. Then there's actually 20 stories that people have written about their experience of being in the Akashic records. So for some people, like I wrote my story about having been a whale is in here. But there's 20 different stories of different kinds of experiences. And then again, I do teach you to start accessing the records. I want everybody in the whole world to start to read their own records. So my abridged version of the 5-step wisdom prayer system is in here. The more in-depth version is in the first book. So that's, kind of a quick read. And then the other book, The Record Keepers, the 4th book is Your Soul Has a Plan. It's really awakening to your life purpose through the Akashic records. And it helps us, again, understand that we're not victims, that we made a very complex plan. Most of us have 50 to 100 soul contracts with other people, that we come here to really do a lot of stuff, as well as hold the light, as well as unlock the pieces, of the architecture that we may have locked down, supporting others, our families, or not, holding the energy of the sacred feminine. I mean, we have so many different kinds of contracts that we come to live out in the world. And so in Your Soul Has a Plan, it's really spelled out in that book, as well as it's kind of nice. The record keepers had me do it a little bit in a workbook style. So when we're working on, say, family contracts, there are also exercises for reflection, and there are some of the prayers, to the healing prayers in this book, that are specific to whatever that aspect is. So again, really wanting to, the record keepers always want us to go as deep as we can, reflecting, answering questions, thinking about, feeling into, even if we're not yet accessing the records. So it's really a book the record keepers want me to write to help more and more people awaken at this really important time in history.
And so you've got Unchained Your Galactic Self, right? That's coming up very soon. So
Yep.
Do you recommend people actually go through the books to get a kind of a foundation for your class that's coming up, so they can, what help out?
Honestly, so what I'm doing is a 4-hour workshop. It's on September 23rd, so it's coming up pretty soon. And in those 4 hours, I will be teaching some of the tools the Akashic records have given us, the record keepers have given me. I will definitely be working on sovereignty, aligning to your soul's plan, and I will be bringing everybody into the Akashic field with me, so that we can do a lot of a lot of group healing. So again, and I popped that one in the chat for you, Tim, in case that's useful.
Yes.
So I made this. So it's called Unchain Your Galactic Soul. And it's pay what you want. You could pay $1, you could pay $88. You know, I love all the numbers people are paying, $4.44, you know, kind of, or $44.44, or, you know, it's very fun. I love the number thing. But in this, really, we're talking about that every single human is a galactic soul. No one just comes to Earth. And so as we dive into this, and I'll also talk more about the 8 galactic soul access keys that the record keepers have given us. So we're going to dive deep, like I say, in this 4-hour program. When we come together as a group, it really is such a powerful time to do big group healings around things like enslavement and abuse and abandonment and betrayal and, you know, low self-esteem, all of our self-doubt. All of these pieces are collective patterns that we have written into it. So, into our earth, right? As we were talking about the earthly architecture, these are all pieces that we've written into what we wanted to experience, right? We come with amnesia, we have all these challenges, and now it's time for us to wake up, to clear these huge patterns, to remember and realize that we are powerful, ancient, infinite souls. And we really do have this. We really can change, I believe, and transform this world in a very short amount of time, but it's going to take every single one of you kind of waking up.
Question that's come in from is it Leah?
Yeah.
Leah.
Yeah, you know, I do not have a retreat scheduled in 26 right now, but we never know, because I just do what the record keepers tell me, and sometimes things show up really quickly. What I am doing, I am not considering it as a retreat as much as a conference. I am hosting an Akashic Record conference in San Francisco, April 9th through the 12th. And it is open to everyone who's ever taken one of my Akashic classes or anyone else's Akashic classes. I just want to really bring together everyone who's been delving into the Akash. And I will also do a 1-day, 8-hour Akashic workshop to teach you my 5-step wisdom prayer system in 1 day. So, so that is the live event I'm doing right now. But hopefully I'll be speaking a couple of different places around the country. And who knows, right? The energy is shifting so quickly. I just really always want to stay in the present moment, listen to what the record keepers tell us, and really follow their guidance, because it's the most powerful thing that I can follow for my business. And I really believe that it is. That's the great gift of learning to access your own records. You can get divine guidance every day on whatever it is, whether it's in relationship to your friends or your family or your business, your life, healing, clearing, right? Releasing karma. There's so much for us to do and learn through our own Akashic records. So learning to do that is really powerful. So join me at Unchain Your Galactic Soul. It is a Tuesday, September 23rd for 4 or 5 hours. Again, huge healing. I love to do group healing. And then I will talk more about the 2-month deep dive in the Akashic records that I'm going to be offering in the fall.
Sweet. Yeah, and also people, we have we're just scheduling now update on our lives would be first weekend of February. And then we are, it's an interesting time because as a teacher, I mean, since 8/8, I'm just getting downloads almost every day about how to bring forth the next level of our programs as well. Like Lisa said, check in, because things are really shifting that fast. Humanity's shifting that fast, and we have to shift as fast. to meet the needs of what the student needs. And so it's fascinating, and a lot more, believe it or not, structure. You know, we do a lot like you do, Lisa, and you can really add to this, is that bringing more and more conscious awareness into this 3D physical body, right? So be really consciously aware of how you're doing your day. So you start seeing the things that you're repeating that aren't healthy. So you can do something different. You know, it's kind of the baseline of the new structures that I'm really getting pushed on. It's like, start talking about this more. And it's like, well, it sounds like old Tony Robbins stuff. I'm like, they said that people need the structure. You know, they need to be responsible. They need to be accountable. And it's like they need a reminder of some of these structured tools as we're actually bringing them into the quantum fields. We're doing all this work. They're taking responsibility for themselves, right? They're coming in their own records. They're doing their own readings. How do they start bringing that into their everyday structure so they start living what their record keepers are sharing with them? How do they really embody that? And it's yeah. So it's a great question about new stuff coming up. Yeah, check in daily because it's kind of how fast it's changing.
I wanted to just make sure everybody who's listening to this, either live or recorded, if you follow the link that says quantumalchemyfusion.com/interviews, we are, there's a hidden link right on the page. Two things. One is for anybody interested in the upcoming Unchain the Galactic Soul program from Lisa. It's on that site. It's on our main page as well. Either one. And if you go to the /interview section, there is a bonus meditation, guided meditation for you for today. We want to offer that to you guys for free. Just click on it, download it. You'll get actually 3 meditations, and you'll get them both on video as well as in audio format that you can play anytime. But going back to that, bookmark our site is also Lisa's site. There's lots of new stuff coming all the time. Our events page, it's funny you brought up the word architect, Lisa. We are actually working on a program, and if I can do a sneak peek, where it's actually called Architect the Life You Live, Life You Love, and it's coming soon on under our program. And if you like what you heard on this conversation today, just flowing between all the beautiful work, Lisa, you're doing, your focus has been around the Akash, and our focus blends in with yours. We just love the synergy that we play in, and the soup we're playing in. But the thing, going back to the thing about if you've done any Tony Robbins or Brian Tracy, there's so much you can learn just picking up those things. But it's more about the fact that it's a shift. It's not a do it for you service. This is you stepping into your power, stepping into your sovereignty to own it and take on, with tools like Lisa's teaching, getting access to the Akashic, getting access to your records, going into the quantum field, building that muscle memory. We've forgotten this stuff, and just
remembering
and just re-remembering it now. So, anything. Go ahead.
I think it's amazing that you're encouraging people to take responsibility to get into their own Akasha, to not depend on others, to give them that message, to take responsibility, because it's a much better step. And, we do everything in the quantum field, same thing. Take responsibility. You've got to come to your heart. You've got to come in with the true, mind frame that you are here to do this work. You want to know. You're not asking somebody else to do it for you. I find that a huge shift in the light workers framework, because we've had so much of this, do it for me. Please clear my karma from me. Please do this for me. And then they go out and pick up another piece. That's what I think, that's what's transitioning now. It's that the universe is saying, listen, we've done that for you. Now it's time for you to do it for you.
Yes, empower ourselves, right? We have been playing, the little tiny humans with amnesia for, at least the last 10,000 years, at least this round of humanity. And it is time. The way we're going to transform our world is by seriously waking up, stepping into our own power, stop being afraid of the word, the energy. You are powerful, ancient, wise souls, right? step into your power and make some changes in your life. It only has to be in your life, because that, of course, ripples out to humanity. So when we make a new choice, when we make that choice to be the forgiveness, to be the compassion, to forgive ourselves, right? Whatever it might be, to step into that next level of learning or growth or love, whatever that doorway is you've been looking for, just see it, open it, and step through. It's really not as scary as we think it is.
Yes.
It's
yes.
scary, but it's we often forget that it's also that simple. There's so much complexity that can overwhelm us because we have this three-dimensional, mindset. Maybe if you're lucky, you bleed into the 4 and the 5, and you find the scariness, and you find the openness. But it is as simple as going into yourself and accessing what you already know through these tools and the techniques you're teaching. And it's just as simple as that. It doesn't have to be complicated.
Yeah, I love that. It really is true. And again, it's, the day of the guru is gone. It is very much time for every one of us to become our own teacher, because we're ancient and wise. Most of you have lived at least 500, if not 800 lives on this, or 1,000. Let me just say, on this planet alone, right? I know I find it appalling some days when the record keeper's like, yeah, you've been here 1,000 lives. And I'm like, oh, I wonder I could remember after that.
And I'm thinking, what am I, remedial or what? I need to come back some more.
Yeah. To kind of wrap it up, we've got a couple of questions. One is, I'm going to rephrase it a little bit, is what do the ETs have to do with humanity awakening? Because we keep hearing they're going to be revealed. And then the other part of that is, what are the record keepers saying about the time we're in? There's so much chaos, so much change. What's happening in the world? And do those two pieces actually connect?
Sure. Well, so, the ETs are us again, right?
Yeah.
That we start to imagine ourselves, the every life you've ever lived is that an aspect of your soul, and you have probably current aspects in other planets, planes, realms, maybe even on a starship waiting to land, right? As well as draconian. I mean, literally, that life was, to me, felt very present time under San Francisco peaks in Flagstaff.
Wow.
Where that experience, which was really wild. Yeah. Anyway,
Close to home.
What?
That's close to home for us.
That is very close to home. I was on my way to Sedona. I spent a night or two in Flagstaff and went to a bunch of the sacred sites. And anyway, but they are us. So you may be in a human body and have an aspect still on Sirius or in the Pleiades or some starship, right? And so we are here to help ourselves. We are here to help ourselves remember and to transform our planet. And so, of course, one of the things the record keepers say about what's going on is that we have lived in this low vibration. We have just kind of gotten sucked down into the muck and the mire for so many thousands of years. The programming and the patterns had been strengthened through religion and energetically from the dark ages to this point. And literally, we need a wake-up call. And sometimes our wake-up call is something like a war or a crazy president or a hurricane or some, natural destructive pattern that we're, of course, also going to experience probably more of, which is one of the things they say. And so it is about waking us up and realizing that we can no longer go on status quo. It is time to unravel and unwrite all of these programs, right? It really is time to me, the programs are part of what we're unwriting to free us from the matrix so that we can move into the organic version of Earth, which would be really kind of the idea of heaven on earth, and not a religious way, but what we originally were creating is this beautiful place. And so I believe that is where we're going with this unraveling of all of these collective contracts and programs and vows and traumas and stories, and allowing ourselves to be ruled over. And really, we're all enslaved. There's absolutely no doubt about it in one way or another. So allowing ourselves to unravel and do that. And again, in Unchain Your Galactic Soul, that's part of the reason I love to do like a 4-hour masterclass like that, because we can come together and really in a collective group unravel some of these huge programs like that. So I hope to see a lot of people at Unchain Your Galactic Soul. I'm hoping to see at least 500 or so people and there, so that we can do some huge collective healing together and step into our power. Really let yourself empower yourself and know you are, wow, so much more than you can imagine.
And we will be there.
Hey.
What are the times for that on the
23rd?
It is on the 23rd. It is 10 a.m. Pacific time, about 2 or 3 in the afternoon. So 1 Eastern time. Yeah, and it works out, so then it's about 6 p.m. in the UK or 7 p.m. in most of Europe, and gets a little bit trickier if you're down under, but
awesome. Well,
Thank you so much,
Lisa. Absolutely.
I love you.
Thank you. I know I have to come visit you soon. I was looking at my calendar and talking with my husband about getting to Sedona soon. It's been a while, so thank you.
As you know, we're in California. We'll be in Sedona soon as well. So obviously, we always love to see you, and you're and just beautiful time with you guys every time you come together. Love it.
Awesome.
thank you.
Thank you. Stay on.
As a host, and we'll wrap up personally. Thank you, everybody. Find Lisa at her website, and we drop the links in there at akashicknowing.com, as well as Quantum Alchemy Fusion. Make sure you grab your bonus for the guided meditation that we've offered. It's in the chat. If you don't get that, just go to quantumalchemyfusion.com.
And the link for Lisa's upcoming Unchain Your Galactic Soul is in there as well.
Yes, the link directly to buy the access to a program is also on our website at Quantum Alchemy. But also we've linked you the direct links. So
thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. Bye for now.